Today is World Patient Safety Day, September 17th, 2020, and I spent the whole day and actually most of this week with several colleagues, one of which is an incredible artist, producer, videographer, and she runs a journal called Please See Me. She works for a couple of different organizations, and I wanted to make sure that you got to meet Tracy because she has probably heard more stories from patients, family members like me, than probably most people have, because she's made it her business to become interested and to help narrate their stories. And I wanted to make sure that you got to meet her on my Zigzag for Zero. Tracy, thank you for taking time to just sit with me. And this is casual. As you probably saw, these interviews are really just getting a sense of why we do what we do. Would you tell us about the journal that you edit and the Please See Me?
Oh my gosh.
And what it is so that people know. I'll make sure to include a link. And then also, what got you started with this? What got you started? Then I'll ask more questions.
Yeah, so thank you so much, first of all, for asking my story. Usually I'm on the other side of the camera asking other people to tell their story. And you're right, I've heard a lot of these stories over the last 15 years. And it was because I knew that there were people whose stories weren't being told that I really wanted to start a publication that is Please See Me, that elevated the stories of vulnerable populations and the people who care for them, all related to health. And it's been quite the journey. We're in our 6th issue now, and each successive issue has shown me that there are voices that need to be heard, especially around mental health, especially around bias. Our next issue, the theme is bias. And, I think that we can't live everyone's experience, but through stories, we can develop empathy that really helps us understand other people have different experiences that we need to understand to care about them on a level that maybe we didn't realize we needed to.
Yeah. I remember you saying that the first issue you had, I can't remember what the number was, but I don't think it was much more than 100 entries. And this last, your 6th edition, I think you said you had well over 500. Am I remembering those anywhere close to what you said?
So it's pretty, it's a good representation of the fact that we've grown over time. And I think the first issue, it was, 100 or so submissions. And then I don't know if it was our 4th or 5th issue it must have been our 4th. We had a mental health awareness writing contest. We've received over 1,000 submissions for that.
That's right.
And half were for the contest and half were for the actual publication.
Okay.
Our last issue, the theme was heroes, and it happened to coincide with the pandemic. And it was fortuitous that we were able to tell stories about heroes in healthcare at the same time this global pandemic was happening. So we also added a special COVID section because we thought it was very important to capture the stories of this time and this pandemic, which was incredibly historic and really pointed to the vulnerable populations that we're committed to because of the disparities in the deaths related to COVID.
Just a couple more details so people can really get a sense of it, and of course when they go to the link, but the submissions are mostly coming from people who have had experiences, but it's a real mixture of people who are giving care, those who are receiving care. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And is it bi-monthly?
It's so we do it 3 times a year.
Okay.
Yep. It's turned into quite the publication.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot over time. It's a pretty much volunteer staff. We're always looking for philanthropic support for it because we are trying to grow the outreach, the dissemination of it. It's online right now, but we'd like to do print. We'd like to include, do it quarterly, but it's really grown because of the number of submissions. It takes more work, and my editorial staff is largely volunteer. It's been my MFA colleagues from the University of California, Riverside MFA program.
Okay.
My dad is the poetry editor, so he's kind of roped in just because he's family.
Yeah.
And he's also a retired English teacher, and retired English teachers are great resources for any type of publication, literary publication that you're trying to put together.
Got it. It sounds like you've put together quite an amazing team. I want to talk for a minute about how you've changed. You said that when you first started this work, you didn't see yourself as having a personal experience with harm in healthcare. You're gonna have to do a little wave here to make sure we get our light back.
Yeah.
There we go. Now you've been at this for a while, and you've been working very closely with some of the leading thinkers in patient safety movement around the world. You have that interesting position of probably meeting a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. What's changed for you, and how have you changed in doing this work?
That's a great question, and I really appreciate you asking me that, because we've been telling these stories for too long, and not enough has changed. And I think for me, when I first started out, I was just honored to be at the table. I was someone who thought, should I go into medicine? Should I go into the business side of healthcare? Should I be a writer? I mean, I was always questioning where I belonged. And I found myself in a really unique position that I was honored to tell the stories of patients who are harmed by healthcare. And it was a nice kind of niche. But after 15 years almost of telling these stories and realizing that not enough has changed, I started to feel guilty. I started to feel like we were taking advantage of people who had been harmed by medical care just because now the thing to do is to tell these stories. The thing to do is to solve the problem.
Right.
And for me, as a person who wants to seek the truth, and that's why I tell these stories, the truth was there, but we weren't acting on it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask people who know in healthcare what's really wrong, they know. And it's frustrating that we can't act on what we know.
Yeah. So we've spent this week here in Washington, D.C., carrying flags, planting 2,000 in the ground. Many of you saw the footage that I shared and the live feeds from Facebook, and you'll be seeing more. Hopefully you've also watched the Unite for Safe Care program. Tracy, as you watched that tonight, what were your thoughts about these 15 years? Do you feel like we might be at a different turning moment now? Where are you at with that? And I'm asking this, and I know it's putting you on the spot a little bit, but one of the things I appreciate about you is your honesty. And so I'd really genuinely like to hear, like, what does today hold for you in terms of the future?
Yeah. No, thank you again for asking me that question. I think what I saw today is the first time that there was a diverse voice in the problem. One of the things that I've always said to the wonderful leaders around me is we need to bring in a more diverse voice. Patients from all walks of life, from all walks of experience, all races, all mental health abilities, all ages, all sexual orientations. Everybody has a health story, a health-related story to tell, and they're not being given a platform. And I think today, with the program that was offered up by the Patient Safety Movement Foundation, it was phenomenal. I was blown away. I was blown away by the voices. I was blown away by the populations that were represented in this event tonight. I've been to a lot of the Patient Safety Movement Foundation events, and they've been wonderful, and I know everybody's been well intended, but today, every voice I felt was represented. Many voices, maybe not every, many voices. I mean, there's still people that we have to bring into, the mix. Again, mental health, long-term care facilities. These are all areas that we really have a lot of work to do to make sure they're safe and to make sure the people who care for them are safe. But I really saw a diverse voice in the event tonight, and you and your story, Vanda, and Yogi Raj. I'm just blown away by what you do. And I'm not sucking up to you because I'm on camera right now. I believe that. You said this is my honesty, and believe me, I don't. That's
my sense of you.
Through your story, and that's why it's so hard to find the right stories to tell sometimes. You could see the love and the just the wonderful relationship that you had, and then that transpires into the loss, and the loss is magnified because you get that. You're representative of thousands of other couples with lost spouses.
Right. That's exactly right.
I mean, that's what's important, that we tell these stories so that everybody can resonate and say, that's me, that's my husband, that's my wife, because it happens far too often.
I hate that that's true, and I know that you're right. I know that there are millions of other couples out there who have experienced this harm, and it didn't change. We didn't learn from it. So tell us about the future of Please See Me. Where do you see it going, and specifically tell us the near-term future. Like, what's your vision for this next edition coming up?
So the wonderful thing about Please See Me is that we have grown over time, and we've gained a following. And in this last year, we've gained 2 small grants, one from the Maryland Humanities and one from the Food and Nutrition Resources Foundation, which is also a social determinant of health. So we've been able to acquire some funding and support in addition to the MedStar Institute for Quality and Safety, who's really been a driving force under the leadership of Dave Mayer, who understands the value of stories and narratives to really expand the understanding of what patient safety and protecting patients and providers, healthcare providers, really mean. So I hope that we'll grow in the ability to put out a print version. I hope that I'll be able to pay my editorial staff, who's now volunteer. The beauty of getting the funding from Maryland Humanities and this new Food Nutrition Resources Foundation is that we can pay our writers, so we can actually pay people who submit, and we accept their pieces, which to me is so important. Every writer should be compensated for their story. Every patient advocate should be paid when they tell their story. I mean, this has been a big thing for me, and why I, was having a hard time with this is we can't expect patient advocates to come and relive these horrible experiences in their lives and not compensate them in some way. You know, I think to me that is one of the reasons it was so important to put this lit mag out there, and eventually find a way to really say we value your story and we're going to show you how we value that.
I think people don't often really think about or ask about the loss that happens at so many levels, and finances, you know, is very often one of them, and certainly was, you know, a factor in our family's life. Thank you for taking time, and I am very, very much looking forward to continuing this conversation. And I will be sure to put a link in the bottom so that everybody can see your past editions, and then I assume they can subscribe for your future editions.
Oh, for sure. And to submit.
And submit,
If they have a
right?
story.
You're
Yeah.
giving me ideas. Like, what would I write about if I wanted to submit something? So, thank you.
Thank you.